build your business bigger than you anticipate it to be, because when you get to a certain point and your business was only built, so just say for instance, our business was only built probably to hold 50 transactions at one point. And then we got to 70 and 80 and the business started falling apart. So now you have to go back at 50 transactions and recreate your business over so that it can handle more transactions. So I always say build your business bigger than what you anticipate it to be. This way you won't have to break it down in the middle and start rebuilding it all over again.
Welcome to the Real Estate Proverbs Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Jefferson, and today we have a special guest, Mr. Donnell Taylor. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, Kevin. Thanks for inviting me to the podcast.
No problem. Donnell, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, right now I'm still Donnell Taylor. Actually, I am the operations director here at Village Premier Collection, Maryland. And also the team leader of the TaylorMade team in the Maryland, DC, Virginia area. A husband, a father of two. I have one son that's 23 and another son that's 12, and an all-around entrepreneur.
Okay, awesome. Tell us how you got into real estate.
So how I got into real estate was funny. When I met my wife, we was broke. That's usually how I start. Like, we were broke. We were living out in Laurel, and at the time, this was when short sales was real heavy. And I was looking at what we paid for our house. I think we was in a townhouse. We paid $269 for the house, and it was 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, 2 levels. The house that was adjacent to it, right next door, the people came in, they bought that house, and it was 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms, 2 levels, and they paid $169,000 for the house. So immediately I went into start looking at real estate. We got an agent to do a short sale on our property so that we can, sell that property and get one at a reasonable price, because the market was so high at that point. I mean, the market was starting to get low, and we paid so much. And through that time, while we're looking at houses, trying to put our house on the market as a short sale, I'm looking at the agent, and first thing I did was look at my wife and say, hey, you could do that. She's just filling in the blanks. And that's what most people think that we do as a real estate agent, and I'm guilty of it. I thought the same exact thing.
Okay. So who got their license first, you or your wife?
She got her license first. We was actually working full-time jobs. She took off for 2 weeks, took her vacation for 2 weeks, and at that time she did the 10-day class. So it was a 10-day class to complete that 60 hours in 10 days. She went from 9 to 5, and from 5 to about maybe 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, every day for 10 days straight, she went to the library to study, finished the 10-day course, and on the 12th day, passed the exam, and then real estate started from there.
Wow. What did you guys do prior to real estate?
We worked at a nonprofit organization. That's where I met her at a nonprofit organization. I was actually a supervisor in the mailroom, and she worked upstairs in accounting. She graduated from Howard, so she has a accounting major.
Okay, you dropping your mail off, spitting game.
Hey, everybody wanted to come to the mailroom for some reason or not.
That's cool. So how long after she got her license did you get yours?
She got her license in 2012. I didn't get my license until 2015. By 2012, business had started picking up, and she needed help. And a lot of the agents that she were looking to for help just wasn't really like cutting it. So I said, you know what? I'll just get my license, and then I'll become your helper at that time, which was only supposed to be a helper at that time. But by the time I got my license and got in, business started growing so much, it just turned into a whole career for us to run the real estate business.
Awesome. So what did your first year look like coming in to assist your wife?
So my first year coming in, she basically just like threw me out there in the fire. Because we all know once you finish real estate school, it tells you a lot of the language of real estate, but don't tell you how to go service clients and actually run a real estate business. So I had to figure out all of that. And she was doing buyers and she was doing listings at the same time. So she gave all the buyers to me so that she can kind of be home with our son. Because while she was running a real estate business and working a full-time job, I was home for those 3 years with our son. So we kind of switched, and then I got all the buyers. So my first year, I think I closed like 21 deals because she had all of this business. And the only thing that I dealt with at that time was buyers. So I just started out working with buyers and I ran buyers the whole entire first year.
Gotcha. At this point, were you a full-time agent, or were you still working for the nonprofit?
No, I was actually full-time. I had left the nonprofit to start a cable construction company with a couple buddies of mine. So I was contracted through cable companies and we was doing cable construction on commercial properties for a lot of times. Then I kind of backed away from that, and then I was doing commercial surveys, and then I got my license in real estate, and then I left that cable industry altogether and started full-time in real estate.
Okay. What did your second year look like going in? Now you've got 21 deals under your belt.
So this was 2016. So the second year we really kind of got going. The first year we finished up with me doing that 21, we finished up a little over 50 transactions. Then that second year, I already kind of knew what I was doing. We ended up getting a coach and get growing, and we probably hit about 70 something transactions that year. So we was pretty busy from the time I came into real estate and the next few years. Because that same year that I came in, she left her full-time job and then went full-time in real estate herself.
Gotcha. And that was 2015 was probably the beginning of what we would see as a normal market. We kind of got out of the foreclosure market. Hedge funds had purchased a lot of stuff. So we were on the tail end of what was considered a downturn in real estate. So in order to close 50 transactions, that's commendable.
Thank you. And it was like, to me, it was like a buyer's market, because I was able to actually get people under contract, and even in getting people under contract, it was several times where I was getting people 4% seller help, getting everything fixed on a home inspection. It was definitely a different market. Like, it ain't happening right now. You barely even getting a home inspection, but back then you can get seller help, home inspection, get the seller to pay for the warranty. Almost everything that the buyer wanted, even to the one point where I was feeling like, well, buyers really control the market, because the sellers, it wasn't like it was now. Like, you couldn't put a house on the market and then it sell in 2 days. Like, you actually had to work as a listing agent to get your property to sell. And that was that market.
Gotcha. So your business, when did you guys create the TaylorMade team?
So the TaylorMade team created in 2018. So 3 years after I got in, with, through coaching and building the business, and the business just started to grow out of what me and her could handle. And I felt like we learned so much from just not knowing real estate at all that we decided to build a team, bring people in, and help them grow their business the way that we grew ours.
What was your first hire?
Our first hire was transaction coordinator. She had a transaction coordinator when I came in. But by the time we got to 2018, we hired a executive assistant that we combined to be a transaction coordinator at the same time. Because at this time we was probably around somewhere between 70, 80 transactions. And then when we just did the math, when you add up $350 times 80 transactions, it comes out yearly to be an actual salary that you can pay somebody that had somebody full time. So we made that transition to have an EA as a dual person that was doing the executive assistant task and also the transaction coordinating, which later on we figured out that was the wrong way to do it, but money was involved. So you figured out what was best for your business at the time.
Right. So what made it the wrong thing to do? Like what did you guys realize?
Because as you get busy and you got somebody being your executive assistant, they're doing executive assistant tasks, like they're answering their phones, they're signing leads that come in through the phone, they're creating flyers, they're just doing a lot of things that don't necessarily have to do with transactions. And then when you're doing 60 and 70 transactions, you got 4 and 5 closings happening in a month, something going to drop at some point. Something's really going to fall apart at one point. And that's what started to happen. Like the business started to fall apart. And one of the things that I always say, and I try to tell all of the agents that come in, build your business bigger than you anticipated to be. Because when you get to a certain point and your business was only built, so just say, for instance, our business was only built probably to hold 50 transactions at one point. And then we got to 70 and 80 and the business started falling apart. So now you have to go back at 50 transactions and recreate your business over so that it can handle more transactions. So I always say build your business bigger than what you anticipated to be. This way you won't have to break it down in the middle and start rebuilding it all over again.
Got you. So once you figured out that the dual position didn't work, how soon did you hire a TC?
What we ended up doing was I didn't hire a TC. I took that executive assistant and made them full-time TC and then hired an admin.
Okay.
Just because they knew the position, they knew what to do, and it was an easier transition because you probably already had like anywhere between 15 and 25 pendants on the book, and you don't want to bring somebody new in and start all over again. So we just moved her over and then hired another EA at that point.
Got you. So once you had the EA in place and the transaction coordinator, did you have any additional agents at that time, or did you begin bringing on agents?
That's when we started bringing on agents. We started out with maybe 3 agents at that time. 3 agents at that time. And then at that time, when we started bringing on agents and things started really flowing, we realized we didn't have a system. So that's when we found out you need a system, because the system was only geared to work for me and her because it was me and her.
Right.
But now you start adding people, the system for you and her, me and her, doesn't work for 5 and 6 other people that's going to be involved in it. So we ended up, like I said, restarting it all over again.
Got you. So what year was this, you think, when you had to restart?
This was in 2018, towards the end of 2018, going into 2019.
Got you. How did you know which system to implement that would work for you and your team?
It was a big challenge because you didn't really know. All you knew was you had a lot of business, and now you're trying to figure out how to make it work for everybody. And then you're trying to figure out, okay, how can I track the stuff that's coming into the business? How can I make sure you getting the equal amount? You getting the equal amount? How can I make sure that the assistant can see what's going on? It was so much stuff going on. And I think what made us realize that we really needed some system was the person that I had as the EA that moved to the transaction coordinator got sick one day. So they got sick, and ultimately when they get sick, you have to fill in for them. So we filled in for them. There's 20 transactions on the books, and we're in the system, or what we thought was a system, and we couldn't figure out anything. We didn't know what was going on. Any any of the contracts. We didn't know where anything was. It was nothing in a central location. So we spent a week. It got to the point where I had to, so me and my wife got separate offices in the house. I had to go downstairs, grab her computer, bring it up into my office, and we stayed in there for a week trying to figure out this whole mess.
Mm.
It was just a mess at that point. And because I worked with buyers, and when I first came in, I didn't do any of the transaction. Like I didn't do anything for compliance. I didn't have to do any of those things. So I really knew nothing about that because we always had a transaction coordinator. So what happened was when she moved into my office, she was doing the transaction coordinator and I became the assistant to try to get all those deals. And at this point, we probably had 10 people on the team and it was like 20, 25 transactions pending. Your EA who created the system for you, or what we thought was a system, is out sick and you can't get in touch with them to try to figure out anything.
Wow. Wow. So hindsight, how would you have done things differently in the beginning and before you hired your EA and your TC?
I think and what I changed to moving forward was, and a lot of times it depends to who you got coaching you and who you got mentors, because what tends to happen is you tend to trust those people and listen to their advice. And all the time, some of the things that work for some people won't necessarily work for you. But when you trust somebody, you kind of follow them. So for me, I felt like we took a little bit of bad advice and we ran with it. Because what was told was bring on an EA, bring on somebody, and let them create your system for you. But at the same time, when you do something like that, you don't really understand what's going on in your business because somebody else created it for you. And which is given. And it'd probably be, as the CEO, you probably won't know, but we wasn't at a point where we couldn't know what was going on. We was doing, 70 transactions and it was busy, but you should definitely know what's going on in your business. So now what I do is I create the system myself, and then I bring in talented people to enhance the system.
That makes sense. And, I guess looking at it from the outside in, the person, if you let that person create the system, they probably create the system that worked for them.
Exactly. So the EA that went out sick, I'm going to tell you exactly what the system was. The system was a Google email, and how they knew that they didn't talk to somebody was they left the messages unread. So for somebody that's coming into that, you have no idea when this email's coming in that's unread every day. And that's how they was tracking, which was a complete nightmare. There's no way to track 25 deals under contract, and you only have them because they wasn't read. So you didn't follow up on that. It was a complete mess.
How long did it take? I guess, in that week, did you and your wife get things squared away in terms of a better system, or did it take longer?
Well, we did get things squared away because I stayed up, like actually looking on the internet for software. Like, what can we use? What can we use as a software that can centralize all of this stuff? So if somebody gets sick and then I sent somebody else into the system, you can see and you can pick up from there. So I spent all night. We found something and we started using that product, and we've been using that ever since. And it's centralized. All the transactions, everything is there. So even if you being in real estate and I say, hey, can you go in and take care of this transaction? There's a checklist. Everything is sitting right there. You can figure out exactly where this transaction left off at and continue to pick it up from there.
Got you. Currently, how many agents do you guys have on your team?
Right now, we have 6 agents. We have 6 agents right now, 1 executive assistant, 1 transaction coordinator, and 2 ISAs.
Got you. And for those who don't know, can you tell us what an ISA is?
ISA is an inside sales agent. And what their job is to do is to make phone calls and set appointments for the agents on the team. And I just started with a new group of ISAs probably like 2 weeks ago. I've done this. I've made an attempt to have an ISA probably 4 times and failed 4 times miserably with that.
Are your ISAs here in the States or are they outside?
They're actually in the Philippines. My transaction coordinator is in the Philippines, and my 2 ISAs are in the Philippines. The only person that's here live is our executive assistant.
Got you. Cool. So in terms of, at this point, you're at a different place than you are now, correct?
Yep.
When did you transition to Village Realty? Village Premier, I'm sorry.
So the brokers we came from, we was with Keller Williams. At the time, we was the number 1 team in that office for a couple of years. The last 2 years, we finished off probably 100, anywhere from 115, 109 transactions for just over 35 million a year. But under the structure in that particular atmosphere, with the brokerage splits and things like that, it was hard to get the team members more of the revenue because of the splits. And with the way that people work, you want everybody to be rewarded. So I start talking to my wife and say, hey, let's start looking at our own brokerage. And then in that journey, she was like, well, I don't know anything about a brokerage. And I'm like, neither do I. But somebody that we know do. And that's when we reached out to Cherie, who's actually the owner of Village, for coaching and guidance on how can we, go independent and create our own brokerage. And then one of the things in that coaching that I never forget is she said, what I want you to do is go out and speak to 10 different franchises and find out what they had to offer and what you think will work best for you. And then on our next coaching call, we came back and I reported everything that I got from them, told them what I liked, what I didn't like about them. And then after all of that was said, that's when she brought up Village to us, that, it was opportunity to bring Village to DC and you guys can own that Village and run that Village. And that's how we got the Village.
Okay, cool. So how long was, so 2 things. How long had you been getting coaching?
We started coaching probably, I know she started coaching probably in 2013, 2014 by herself. And then when I came in, we started coaching, and then we went to a different coaching company. That's where we met Cherie at, developed that relationship through the years. And even now, we still getting coached.
Do you guys coach your agents or do they participate in the same coaching program as you?
So we coach them through Village. We run a mentorship program, and through the mentorship program, there's a 12-session boot camp that we just take the agents from zero coming in up until running a business. And then after that, they get assigned, not really assigned, but we have mentors, which are some of the top agents in the brokerage, and they get to interview them and see which mentor will best fit their business the way they run their business. And then they with those mentors for the next 6 transactions.
Got you. And so you went to 10 different brokerages. What was it that made you select Village Premier over those?
The biggest thing that made me select Village Premier was the relationship that we had with Cherie. We knew Cherie, we trusted Cherie, and she had something that we was looking for that we can go with. One of the things that I do know about business, if you running your own business and you control your business, you decide who you want to spend your money with or who you want to grow. And it's like, okay, if I'm growing other people and she's here, I trust her, I'm gonna go with you. Because I could decide where my money goes. You run the business. It's your business.
Got you. Cool. So, what is one of the drawbacks you would say of running your brokerage versus running a team in another organization?
You have to be mentally prepared for that, because at first, when it was only you and the team, that was the only thing that you had to worry about, generating knowledge, leads, and helping your team grow. And then when you start to run a brokerage and you also have a team, you got to be able to separate the two, because now you still have to do the same things that you was doing for the team. And plus, you're responsible for all the agents that come into the brokerage to help them grow and succeed as well.
Are you not necessarily, do you still sell or are you fully running the brokerage?
I don't sell. My wife, she still does listings. But for me, I totally transitioned out to running the whole operations side of the business. That includes basically running the brokerage, running the mentorship program, still running the team at the same time. So I honestly haven't sold a property since 2022.
Okay. So what does it look like what does your schedule look like on a daily basis in terms of being a broker versus when you were working as an agent? Like, what's probably the biggest difference you think?
Spend a lot more time talking, a lot more time talking, in a lot more meetings. Because now, but if you look at it, it's probably the same. So instead of appointments with clients, I have a lot of appointment with agents, helping them grow their business, being in different meetings, getting the opportunity to speak to people like you on podcasts, which is awesome for me, because I'm not the person that talk. If you don't say something directly to me, I'm probably not going to say nothing. So you get opportunity to talk and be able to grow people and see people grow, because we came from zero knowledge in real estate to now running a whole full-fledged brokerage. So I just want to be able to do that for other people.
Gotcha. At the height of your business, at the height of the team, what was the most amount of agents you had?
At one point, we was at about 15 agents at one point. And then I don't want to say issue, but one of the things that becomes hard with that is controlling your culture. And 15 different personalities that you're dealing with on a regular basis and trying to maintain a culture, that became a little up in the air. And then what we ended up doing was kind of getting back down to who the core of the business was. And then we started to build back again. Because we got into a thing where it was a numbers thing, right? Like they was like, you got to bring them in. You don't know who can do this. You don't know who can do that. So your team started to feel like a revolving door. And I didn't want a revolving door. Like I wanted to build a culture, even though, you're going to have people to come in, people going to leave. Once they grow to a certain point, you want them to be able to stand on their own anyway. But I didn't want people coming in, staying for like 3 days, a week or so, and then leaving. So we broke it down from about 15, 16, that back down to like 6.
Okay. With that being said, and having the ability to control your culture, how big do you want your agency to be?
Our goal for this year is to get to 100.
Okay.
One of the things that I want to happen, and it's really hard, is I want everybody that come through here to be productive at some point. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to have this brokerage with a bunch of numbers and then I got 40%, 30% of them just on your roster, not generating no kind of wealth for themselves. So that's one of the goals that I'm trying to do, make sure that we can get people in, get them productive so that they can change their life.
With that being said, are you guys bringing on brand spanking new agents, or are you looking for more seasoned agents?
We bring on brand spanking new agents. That's mostly what the mentorship program is for. And right now we're redoing the mentorship program to actually get the brand new agents in the production. We definitely look for seasoned agents as well. But we bring them all in.
Got you. In terms of production, I'm assuming that your wife is probably still top producer.
Yeah, she's still top producer. She still does anywhere between 40 transactions by herself. Because she's the actual broker of the company. So she still has broker responsibilities as well. But she's on the listing side. So with the systems and the tools that we have, she goes on listing appointment. We give it to the listing manager. They pretty much handle it from there. So she has a lot of freedom to be able to still sell at that level and not necessarily be always engulfed into that side of real estate. She can still run the brokerage.
Got you. So is the tailor-made team more so set up as a team oriented, or is it more of a brokerage? And I'll explain what I mean. Are you and your wife the rainmakers and you filter everything out, or do agents come in and they have to eat what they kill?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
And that's how we got to the point of being able to start a village, because it was almost like we was running a mini brokerage inside of a brokerage. Do we provide leads? Do we take care of a lot of things that you would necessarily have to take care of on your own? Yes, but it's not solely based off of what I provide for you. You do have to go out and generate some business, because the last thing that I want is when you leave this team, you have no idea what to do in real estate. If you leave the team, I expect you to be able to get out and run your own business by yourself and then be successful at it. So that's why we didn't do, because I know a lot of teams, they write offers for their client. I mean, they write offers for their agents. They give them all the leads. They do different things. And then when the agents leave, it's almost like they just got out of school because they didn't know how to do anything because they did everything for them. So that was the last thing that I wanted to happen.
Got you. What inspires you to grow?
I think it's just from where I came from, like where we grew up. We grew up in the hood. We didn't have any money. I ain't even graduate from high school till I was 20 years old. So just having that background, and then you getting into a place where you can see there's no ceiling, no limit to the amount that you can achieve. That's what keep me going. And then for me, being in those situations young, I try to live my life being uncomfortable. So, they say, everybody says success is when you get uncomfortable. I try to stay in that place, and that's what allowed me to grow. So I try to never get comfortable where I'm at. There's always a change that could be made, or always something that you can tweak to get yourself to the next level. So for me, there's no comfortable. And I just think where I came from pretty much drives me to keep on moving.
Got you. In terms of, production, we're in a shifting market. What are some things that you guys are planning for yourself and your agents to try to beat the curve?
I think what we've been planning is teaching agents how to actually work, kind of getting over what's been going on. Like, it's going to get to a point where you're going to have to go on your listing appointment and you're going to have to win it. Like, it was at that point where you might go on a listing before and it was 5 or 6 agents. You either want to be the first one or you wanted to be the last one. so that you can win it. Even on the buyer's consultations, you have to have a good consultation so that you can actually win a client. So we just teaching them the actual fundamentals. So it's not so much things are falling in your lap, because in this market that's coming up, you're going to actually have to work for your business, and you're going to need to know how to do that.
Got you. What would you say if I'm a new agent coming to the TaylorMade team? And I know you have the mentoring program. What are some of the key components that I need to be doing from the beginning in order to start out with a good foundation?
Prospecting. So if you come into the TaylorMade team, all the systems are in place for you, right? So you just have to plug into them. And then you need to start prospecting immediately. So what I tell a lot of people, like, we think we in real estate, but our job is prospecting. If you're not doing any prospecting, you're not getting any business. Like, just because you got a license, business ain't gonna show up. So we need to start prospecting, whether you're using the dialer to do circle prospecting, using your phone to call people that you know, let them know you're in real estate. You have to start doing something on a daily basis to try to generate business. Even if you outside, you passing out your business card, you meeting people in the store, something, somewhere, you have to be doing something on a daily basis to generate business.
Got you. And in terms of prospecting, how much time do you tell them to time block to prospect? And what does prospecting look like?
At a bare minimum, I'm telling them to do at least an hour. So what we got on the team, and we switched it because it used to be, all right, make 20 contacts a day and you should be good. But what we found, especially because 90% of the people on our team had full-time jobs. So if you're trying to make 20 contacts in a day and you got a full-time job, you end up talking to people, just giving them your name and passing out your card, which is not necessarily going to help you if they don't call you. So we switched that later on to having 5 real estate conversations with people. Have 5 real estate conversations with people a day. And that should be good. So, but if you have a real conversation with people in reference to real estate, it's a lot better than you just running around passing out 20 cards and not knowing if you can get them. But have 5 real conversations with people every day. That's 25 conversations out the week. You should be able to get some piece of business out of that some kind of way.
What does that follow-up look like?
So previously, that follow-up, they would go in the database, they would add them to a campaign, and it would start following up with them for them when they can't follow up. And then they would, try to set an appointment with them. But now we have the ISAs. So now the ISAs are calling, the leads that come in, and they're setting up appointments for the agents. They give it to the agents, and then the agents call. So now I have the ISAs in charge of doing the follow-up with everybody until they're ready to get to a point of setting an appointment, and then they give it to the actual team members.
Got you. Are you guys currently doing any paid leads? How do you generate leads?
So we generate leads on a dollar. We do a lot of circle prospecting, call expireds, call for sale by owners. We do pay for leads. We use Google pay-per-click ads through the database that we use. And then we also use referral sources. So all the referral sources that's out there, we signed up with them. A lot of people say, I ain't going to pay them 25%, but we sign up with them. We use them too.
Got you. And that's kind of like, a lot of people look at it differently. Like, yeah, I'm not paying them 25%, but they don't get paid until you close.
Right. And 100% of zero is still zero.
Man, you've been looking at my notes, man. I say that all the time. I talk to agents, from the lending standpoint, and I just kind of talk to them and see how they're doing. And I always ask them, like, do you want a whole grape or half a watermelon?
Right.
Because you can get 95% of your commission. But if you close in one deal every couple months, is that
Mm-hmm.
better than getting 50% of 5 deals a month or 3 deals a month? Like
Exactly.
I try to encourage agents. The only way you're going to learn in this business is going through transactions.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're doing a couple transactions, a year, your learning curve is going to take a lot longer.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you come in with a legitimate team that has a rainmaker and that has a system for you to succeed as well as them, and you just not be their assistant for free unless you just all of a sudden close a deal, then you'll learn faster and you'll be able to grow.
Right.
And I think that's like a huge misconception in our industry of everybody has to be the boss. I mean, I know people that are on teams that make more money than solo agents,
Yeah, me
and
too.
they only get a portion. They get a fraction of it, but they do so many transactions that they're like, all I have to do is show up and I do my part. But in terms of the heavy lifting, the company does it for me. They get
Mm-hmm.
compensated for it, but I'm okay because I do well.
Yeah, I think with the team, a lot of times the agents they say, "Oh, I don't want to pay the split to be on the team," not knowing that there's a lot of costs associated with running your own real estate business. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions too in real estate. Like a lot of people come in and they assume that they just a real estate agent. Like there's way more to that. And that's what I'm trying to kind of like help people understand, that this is a business that you're running. Outside of you just being a real estate agent selling and buying homes, you actually running a real estate business. So if you think about it on the business side, that same 25% that you get from that referral company, it really doesn't matter, because your whole goal for your business is to generate revenue. If you go out to eat and you send your food back and then they give you another plate of food for free, but they still charge you for the plate that your partner had or the drinks that you had, they still generated revenue, but they lost some money. But that's the goal of a business, is to generate revenue.
Right. Right. And I think that's the biggest thing too, man, is like people don't understand that you are running a business.
Mm-hmm.
And while you're entrepreneurs, the only way you're going to succeed is to have a system in place that works to grow the business. And I think I say pretty frequently that like getting your license is just, it's one thing. When you get out, you don't know how to sell a house. You just, like you said, the terminology and the things they teach you in real estate school, you don't even handle. Usually an attorney
Yep.
or somebody else handles that stuff. And I think that more companies should have more things set in place for agents to be successful as business owners. Um, Even down to setting up your business as an entity,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to just being, Kevin Jefferson and getting my checks sent to Kevin Jefferson. Set it up where your checks are drawn to Jefferson LLC or S Corp or Jefferson Incorporated, and then that's where you save on the tax burden. But a lot of times people want their checks in their name and they want all the money, and they're chasing the deals for the
Yep.
check because they spent everything.
Yeah. So we try to make sure and teach them that. That's like one of the first sessions in the mentorship boot camp that we go through, and try to get everybody to at least get an LLC before you get started, and don't be getting paid in your personal name. Like start that business journey from the beginning. I know with the team, everybody that joined the team, we get them to get a LLC. Like don't get paid in your name. Like start running your business as a business. Even though you're part of the team, you still running your own individual business within this business that we got running here.
That's awesome. That's great. That's the first time I've heard of a brokerage that does that.
Thanks.
So
That was Cherie. And also with us too.
Yeah, definitely. What would you tell someone to do who is aspiring to make the change from the team to actually owning a brokerage? What would be a few tips you would give them?
I would definitely say start with your mindset, making that transition, because running a team is just that. You just responsible for the team. And when you get to running a brokerage, not only do you still have to maintain your team, but you have a lot of other people outside of the team that you responsible for their growth. And the reason why people come to your brokerage is because they trust that you're going to help them grow in the real estate. They're not coming here to hang out. They're not coming here for drinks, even though that happens a lot of time. But the ultimate goal when people come to you is for you to help them grow their business. So if you can't mentally wrap your mind around the fact that it's two separate things and I'm responsible for another 50, 100 people growing their business along with growing the people inside of your team, it's going to be a difficult challenge for you.
Got you. Do you think that you and your wife's styles complement each other to help you run a successful brokerage?
Yeah, because there's a lot of things that she can do that I don't do. A lot of things that I do that she can't do. So like me handling the operations part, which means, I do a lot of the coaching. I deal with all the technology, all the training, a lot of that stuff. And then she deals with a lot of the legal stuff, as far as contracts and dealing with vendors and a lot of those things that just not my wheelhouse. My wheelhouse is building stuff. So I build all the systems and just manage all of that stuff.
Got you. With your business partner being your wife, and when you go home, are you ever able to cut it off?
We got better at it. I can say that. But previously, it was 24/7 real estate because we wasn't doing nothing else. You know what I mean? So when we started the brokerage, I started getting up and coming to work every day. Just to create some separation. We both have offices in the house and we would work from home. You would go on appointments, you would come back, and it was just everything about your life was real estate. There was no separation. So we had to get coaching on that as well. Like, it has to be a cutoff point. You have to separate it so that you can maintain a normal life. But other than that, our life for a couple of years was 100% real estate conversations. Go wake up talking about real estate. You go to bed talking about real estate all day, every day. And it was nothing else outside of that. Even if you go on a date, when we get there, we talking about real estate too. So it was nothing. But we figured it out. We through coaching, and we have cutoff periods. We do things together now, and we just don't talk about real estate.
Got you. What does that time look like? Because let's think about it. She's listing, you're the broker, and then you're partners. Yep. And then you're also partners in life, husband and wife. Like, how do you cut it off? And I only say that because I know from my standpoint, from the lending side, my wife's not in real estate, but I'm always asking her opinion because she can see it from a different standpoint. As a woman, because the way their mind works, and then as someone looking on the outside in. So how do you cut that off? Because I find myself still talking to her about certain things, or she'll ask me about something that she may hear. But it's hard to cut off.
Yeah, it's really hard. So you have to have a conscious effort to stop it. So I know, like, for me now, I had to tell her, all right, after this time, I'm not answering no more real estate questions. So if she come up, sometimes she'll come up and she'll ask, or sometimes I'll go and ask. And then when I get to the door, I'll just have to turn around. Like, all right, it's after this time. But you still want your question answered. And then sometimes we'll be like, hey, I know you ain't working, but can you answer this question? You know what I mean? So it does bleed over, but I think if you make a conscious effort to try to stop it, you end up with that free time sometimes.
Gotcha. Cool. So Donnell, man, this has been pretty insightful information. It's great to see a standpoint of someone who truly has an entrepreneurial background and understands that, you know, you have to have a system in place. And I appreciate you also for telling us some of your downfalls that you ran into running the business, you and your wife, how you got into them and how you worked your way out of it. So that's definitely to be, you know, commended, because a lot of times on your side, we just see the glamour of the transactions and popping bottles at closing and getting the keys. But we don't see, you know, the inner workings of when you go home, you and your wife talking about problems, your admin's out and you got to step in and you don't know what the heck you're doing because you didn't have a system.
Right.
So, you know, those transparent moments are important for inspiring brokers or just agents to hear, because you don't necessarily have to have a broker to have an executive administrator or a transaction coordinator. So just seeing that you need to have a system in place no matter what, because let's say you're out and you have a team member that steps up in your place, they know, they can see, okay, this is how the system runs. So that was great insight. For anyone who wants to reach out to you, ask you some questions, or potentially join your brokerage, how can they reach you?
You can reach me at Donnell.Taylor at villagepremier.com. And my phone number is 202-320-5119.
Awesome. You've been listening to the Real Estate Proverbs podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Jefferson. Our guest, Mr. Donnell Taylor, the Taylor Made team. Have a great day.
Thank you for watching the Real Estate Proverbs podcast with Kevin Jefferson. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel so you can be notified when the latest video drops.